Brilliant. So hi, my name is Lars. So I'm sitting here today with Frank E.Torpey, who is a founding member of the Suite. And if I'm correct, the date it was founded was February 26, 1968.
If you say so. The day that I actually always think of being the day was when we met in the Swan in Ruislip. We'd agreed before this, and we had a meet between myself, Brian and Mick, and then we agreed that we would then look for a bass player and we'd form the band. So if you say that's the date, then I concur.
I can get dates wrong, but
well, I'll go with that for the time being. I can if it's wrong, I'll always tell you.
Brilliant.
Okay.
So, and before you founded the band, you played with some of the boys in a different band or something.
Right. Directly before the Suite, there was a band called Wainwright's Gentlemen. This was a semi-pro band, and I had just left a band, and I needed something like a semi-pro band just to give me some money, so I could earn enough to put money in my petrol tank of the car, and get me if I wanted to go to the pub or whatever. And so I phoned up Mick to ask Mick, did he know anybody that needed a guitar player? And with that, Mick said, we do. I said, all right, well, I'll audition. And he said, no, you won't. He said, you've got the job. I said, well, surely. I mean, he said, listen, you've been working in a pro band. You've definitely got the job. You come along. And so I joined Wainwright's Gentlemen. So that was me, Brian and Mick in the same band, with some other people like Jimmy Searle was the guitar player in that band, who was by far and away the best musician in the group, by the way.
Yeah.
And then, if you want me to continue, I'll carry on how that ended. I was only in the band for about probably 6 weeks, perhaps 7. Then I got the sack. And I thought, I can't believe they sacked me.
Oh, why did they sack you?
I don't know. I was absolutely. I mean, I was like, They didn't need a great guitar player. They already had a great guitar player with Jimmy Searle.
Yeah.
But now they had 2 very good guitar players in the band. But I got the sack, and I'll tell you what it was. One of the guys in the band, he had a friend called Robin Box, who was a guitar player, and that was a friend of his, and he wanted him in the band. So they sacked me. So I was out. Now, on that, although they'd sacked me, they still kept me on for more gigs. I think they were trying to get Robin rehearsed for the band, and it perhaps going a bit slow, I don't know. So I kept on doing more gigs, probably for about 4 weeks, probably 1 or 2 a week, and then I was finished with the band, and that's when Mick and Brian said to me, we should form a group together. They could see we made more sense staying as a unit, which is what we did. On that meet in the Swan, that's when we agreed to get a bass player. That was the start of the Suite Shop. Sweet Shop.
Yeah. And then
we had no name, but Mick was going through names. He had names like Tears and all this stuff, and one of them was Sweetshop. That's what we settled on.
So, how did you come to the name Sweetshop? Was there any particular reason?
There is absolutely. Anybody tells you there's a reason for it, there is no reason. Mick was quite good at coming up with things like names for bands and stuff. I don't know why, he had a knack for it. And it just sounded good to us, Sweetshop. And I don't know why, but there were some other bands around at the time. There was Marmalade, they were by then quite big. And really, when you think about it, quite stupid names, but there you are. It was the period, just after psychedelia and all that stuff.
Oh, that's brilliant. There are a few fan questions. There's on Facebook a big fan group, Sweet Forever, which is done by a great guy named Oliver. He really knows a lot. So I asked him a few things before, and he just knows everything. He's like an encyclopedia. Yeah, that's the word, yeah. And one of the questions was from a guy named Cliff. He asked, did Fontana Records had a follow-up single ready for release if Slow Motion would have been a success? Slow Motion was your very first single, was it?
Right, I'll clear this up. We had no direct meetings with Fontana. Melon's Music was a publisher, It was their show. So we were signed to Mellin's Music. Mellin's Music got us in the studio to do the first thing. I think we did the B side before we did the A side, and there was at no time was there any discussions with Fontana would we do a follow up to Slow Motion, purely because, as I say, we didn't have a face-to-face meeting with the record label. Our deal is with Mellin's Music. Does that clear that up?
Yes, of course.
Yeah, okay, right. Yeah, go on.
When I a few days ago, I looked at one of the old photos, and when I saw the photo of you four, I thought like they look like a little bit like the Beatles, but not like in a suit. Was that intentional, or was it just that there's a hairstyle everybody had anyway at the time?
Yeah, I think that's more the case. I don't think we were not trying to project an image, and we certainly weren't stage managed. So we were kind of basically that's what four young fellas look like in the day. So that's the case. Yeah.
So Gabriele, she has a question. She asked, did you have a project that seemed more promising than the Suite at the point in time which you left the band?
No. The reason I left the band was because I was really keen on progressive rock. Bands like Spooky Tooth, The Nice, Yes, Jethro Tull. This is where I saw my future. No way were we going to go that way. There was another problem with the band, and that was we were used various booking agents. One of them was an agent based in Southend, and they were pals with Phil Wayman, who we were actually quite pally with then at the time, and they were giving us gigs which were absolutely dreadful. They were youth clubs. I'd never done youth clubs when I was a kid of like 15, 16 in bands. So to be doing youth clubs at the age of 21 was absolutely horrific. And of course they are the worst kind of gigs. And I knew the other guys in the band didn't like it either, but I was prepared to leave and start again.
Yeah.
So that's the reason. I had nothing was in. I had no meetings with anybody. It was. I said to the group, "I'm going to leave. Find another guitar player. Once you get one, rehearse him up, and I'll go." And it was as simple as that.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I just saw my future as being just somewhere else, but still being pals with the lads because I was good. We were mates.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So at the time, this is a question from Oliver. So at the time, what was normal for you to get through a gig? Is that something you can talk about?
Right. This is, you want to specifically for Sweet gigs?
Yeah, but for what it was at the time, yes.
Right.
When you were in the band.
Well, I believe the first gig we got £20 for, which I think was Hemel Hempstead Pavilion, which Oliver will probably tell you. He'll probably know that. I think that's probably right. I think that would have been about 20, 25. The normal going rate on a Saturday night for a band like us would have been more like £35 once we'd got under steam.
Yeah.
The band I'd been in before that, we could be looking at more like £70 a night.
All right.
So twice as much, yeah.
So at the time, were the band already popular with like the girls?
Funny enough, as soon as we put the band together, we were popular not just with girls but with other bands. We used to work down the Clay Pigeon quite a bit.
Yeah.
Now, that I think the fella that run that venue, I think he put us in probably more or less once a week. I would say the audience was split between a lot of young girls come along to see the band, plus the rest of the audience would be young other bands watching what we were playing, which they would be playing the same thing 3-4 weeks later, simple as that. Yeah.
So do you have from those times, from the beginning, do you have like any interesting stories that happened? Anything that's very memorable that you never forgot about or something?
Right. You've got me on the hop here. You actually sent me this question, so I should have said there are many things. if anybody looks at my web page, which I say my web page, Facebook page, you'll see some of the stuff that I put down. These are just small anecdotes. Nothing really comes to mind. Probably the most memorable thing probably is we worked with E.Torpey before they were massive. But having said that, although they were massive, they had a number 4 record in the charts in America, and they were working for gratis, especially, which means they're working for nothing on the venue we were working with them, just to get experience, which is just amazing. And that was a good night because we met some great musicians in Richie Blackmore, John Law, and also we became quite pally for a while.
Yeah.
Sorry, can't expand more than that. Sorry, I've got no other real big stories that I could think of at the time.
No, that's completely all right.
Okay.
So so after you left, so did you stay in the music business? What did you do then?
Right. Okay. This is a good question. When I left, I assumed that I would just join a progressive band almost immediately. As it happened, I didn't, because every band I looked at, I either didn't get on with them, didn't think they were right for me, or they didn't get on with me, so it was a bit of each. And at this time, I kind of got involved in buying a house. I was also running a company, a cab company, would you believe? And this was just by pure chance. Somebody said to me, do you want to buy a cab company? I said, no, I can't, because I haven't got any money. And with that, my mother's friend who owned a pub, she said to me, I hear you need some money to buy a cab company. I said, yeah. And she said, there you are, there's the money for it. When you get the money back, give it to me when you get it back. So I bought a cab company, and I'm running a cab business, and also starting to get some gigs, people picking up the phone saying, can I do a gig here and there? And these were kind of like, okay, you know, but nothing spectacular at that time.
And did you stay in contact with the boys over the years?
Not really. Once between me leaving the band and then Mick Stewart joining, there was Mick Stewart was in the band. I was in the band for 18 months, almost dead. I finished in July at a gig which I can't recall now. It's out in Addlestone Way somewhere. I can remember that was my last gig. Then Mick Stewart took over. Mick only was with the band for about 9 months, but then Andy joined, and in that time I didn't have much contact with them because I was living my life. Every day was like 100 miles an hour. You know, I'm serious. That's how I lived. It was like I got up when I was racing here, racing there. I didn't realise it at the time. It's only looking back on it now. But I had a very full life, so I didn't have much time. To say, I might have bumped into Mick once or twice, and they had no success until about 3 years later, when I think the first single charted.
Yeah.
And there's a story I can tell you about that. Before that record was released, they came round to my house and said, "This is just Mick and Brian. Would I like to rejoin the band?"
Okay.
And I thought, no. And funny enough, I'd booked a holiday to Jersey.
Yeah.
I said, well, no, I'm going on holiday next week and all that stuff. And I just saw that there was another record coming out, and that would have been it. So there was no big deal. Yeah. And nobody could foresee the future, so I just didn't, whatever.
Did you ever regretted it?
No. If I'd had a terrible life and things had gone down the plug hole, then I think I might have done. But I had a great life, and my life was so full, and it was really, it was like, as soon as the 70s came along, it was as if somebody said, you will have whatever you want to have. And it was like somebody just waved a magic wand over me, and everything just worked out. How do you explain to somebody when you know it's going well? Not only do you know it's going well, you're completely aware of it. You just think, well, I know my life is going great, and I didn't wake up one day in the 80s and think, oh, that was good, but I didn't realise it. I was thinking at the time, this is great. The only difference was when it got to the 80s and things didn't get any better, I thought, in all honesty, it would continue living this meteoric. God, I was so lucky in everything I did, travel, money-wise, had lovely cars, travelled the world. You can't ask for more than that from a young fella.
Yeah.
You can't ask, I mean, if you get that, Jesus, you know, I come from Kilburn, you're expected to kind of like have a life of living in, working in factories and stuff. And now I am, everything just worked out so well. So I couldn't, and also you have to remember that when the Sweet had their first hits, they weren't the good songs, they weren't like Love Is Like Oxygen and Action. They were pretty, you know, the early stuff wasn't great.
So like Oxygen and Action, that would have been the songs you would have
oh my
really
God,
liked.
if I'd have played on those songs, I'd have said, yeah. But they came like, they come like 8 years down the road. And 8 years down the road, there's a war going on in the Sweet camp. They're all fighting each other. I mean, Jesus Christ, I didn't want to be involved in all that. I mean, you know, what did you do? Got up and had a row with Brian. God almighty. Hey, who wants that? No. I mean, my life was going great, and I thought, but I knew that there was open warfare going on, and at no time did anybody seem to be getting on with anybody else. But there you are. I mean, but good luck to them. I mean, cross. They're great songs. I mean, to me, that's around about the time, more or less, like around Toto and stuff. I thought Toto were brilliant, and that stuff stands up to bands like that. Yeah. You know, that's class.
I think it's in all those bands. Everyone says when later on, oh, there were fights going on in a Racine, and I've seen at some point an interview from Nuddy Holder, and he said like at some point he met up with the old bandmates and they were thinking of doing stuff together, and like 5 minutes later they were already fighting again, like it was in the old days. So.
Yeah. The thing is this. If you look at, say, Andy's band now, Andy is the leader of the band. It's not cooperative. He doesn't say, should we do this? He goes, we're going to do this, and I'm going to pay you this. That's how it works perfectly. And everybody says, okay, thank you, sir. We'll get our wages, we'll play our bit. That's how bands work best. But nobody ever starts a band off like that. Everybody starts off equal, and consequently, everybody's got an equal say. That's when you get the fights and stuff, because it's like, it's not your band, it's our band. Whereas when it's somebody's band, say like Steve's band, when Steve had his band, he says, right, I'm having so-and-so singing, so-and-so on bass, so-and-so on guitar. I want you to do this, we're playing this in this order. Could we do this, Steve? Well, possibly. I'll have a look at it. But it's Steve's band.
Yeah.
So when it's your band, that's when things. When you've got a lead member, it's like with like Oasis. You have now got two Oasis or whatever they call themselves, but they run much smoother. There's no fighting, nothing. The lead vocalist, guitar player, he says, we're going to play this, I've written this song, we're doing it, end of story. If you don't want to do it, go, I'll get somebody else.
Yeah.
So I believe bands don't work when they're democracies, they work better when it's somebody leading the band. It's simple as that, for peace and harmony, so to speak.
But you worked then later on at some point, you worked again with Brian, and you did a recording together, did you?
Yeah, well, this is a really weird one, because what happened was when Brian left the band, when he left the Sweet, I had no idea. It was about sometime around about the mid-80s. I saw an advert in one of the music papers, and it said the Sweet were on that night at the Marquee. Well, I know the Marquee very well. I was in a band that was on headline there for 3 months in a residency, so one of my favourite clubs. I said to my wife, because I'm now married and I've got a kid, I have two by them, and I said to my wife, I'm thinking of going down to the Marquee. The Sweet are on tonight. What do you think? She said, yeah, go on. Jumped in the car, and it's like down the A40, half an hour, I'm in London. Jumped out the car, walked in. As I'm walking into the marquee, right in front of me is a fella, and I went, Brian. He turned around and he went, Frank. It was Brian, and he was with Marilyn and another woman. I think it might have been some, I'm not sure if it was one of his girlfriends or something. We got chatting, we watched the band play for about 20 minutes, and we agreed to have a meet, and we would see how things went. And with that, I then went round to Brian's house, I don't know, perhaps a week later, with a little synth keyboard, played him some of the songs that I'd come up with. The whole idea of doing something in the future, and it took forever because there's always a reason Brian couldn't do it. And then one day out of the blue, he phoned me up and he said, can I come round and do a song? And he come round and he sang it in my garage.
Wow.
That song was in my garage it was recorded in my garage on an 8-track reel-to-reel analog recorder. That's why it sounds a little bit ropey, but it is what it is.
Yeah, it's I listened to the song, and I really liked the song. I thought it's actually great.
It's a simple little punk thing, you know, and you could hear, you know, I didn't spend a lot of time doing the lyrics. She was Sharon Cena, come from Argentina, you know, only drank red Cena. It was like proper punk stuff. The idea was to actually re-record all the tracks and everything, but soon after that Brian died, and I thought we'll just keep it as it was, and it's basically an artifact, you know. So I look at it like that. No apologies for it. It was a very rough old demo, but Brian, God bless him, he just sat down. I sang the lyrics to him. He sang it, and he said to me, "Should I double track it?" And I went, "Yeah." I couldn't believe it.
I thought he sounded really good on the track, because I've seen some recordings of him a few years prior to that, and I thought his voice doesn't sound so good. So it seemed to me his voice improved again somehow.
He was at ease. I think if he'd have been uptight, it may have sounded a little bit. And you've got to remember, it's a very poor quality recording. I think that was a cheap old AKG mic. Probably the quality wouldn't have been as good as you've got on that camera. And so, and I say it was like an old 8-track reel-to-reel recorder. So I think, considering it's done in a garage in an hour, it's not too bad.
So, it's a very weird question. How does it feel to be the last surviving member?
Yeah.
I mean, many people been there.
Yeah. I think, in all honesty, Steve hit home harder than any other member, purely because it is just that. We were all mates as kids, and suddenly I am the last person that's alive from that band. It's just staggering, and I actually felt so gutted when Steve died, because I'd seen that he had respiratory problems, I believe it was pneumonia, and with these things it's normally over quite quick, so 2-3 weeks and somebody, that's it. But with Steve it went on for a long time, and I thought, he's over it now, he's done it.
Yeah.
I thought he's coming out of this. And when he died, it was just, and it is because, as you say, it's absolutely staggering to think that there I was as a 20-year-old lad, 20-year-old lad with Mick, Brian and Steve. We had this little group, and there we were. We were playing great clubs in London. You know, I say about we're doing some of the rubbish stuff with the youth clubs, but we did great clubs in London. We did stuff like Blazes, Samantha's. These are like really happening places, you know. And so we were doing all that, and we were working with the bands that were coming up at the time. Don't get me wrong, we weren't working with the likes of say like Yes and bands like that, but we were like coming up just under that rung. And so to think that then all of a sudden Brian died wasn't expected, but he died. Mick died, but when Steve died, he's made that, he's over the 70 mark, and it's cracked the pneumonia thing. And as you say, to think that I am it's just it seems odd to think that there we were, and I'm the only remaining person alive from that group. Yeah, it's incredible. Yeah.
So what you doing nowadays? Are you retired? Are you still doing music?
I am retired. I still dabble, but but I'm dabbling rather than it's. I don't go out and gig, or not. I don't think anybody does at the moment because of the COVID thing.
Yeah.
But even if the COVID wasn't on, it would take a lot for me to go out and do gigs. I would do the odd gig here and there. Nobody's going to offer me the kind of gigs that I would love to do. So, and it's okay.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of like that's not a big deal. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah.
Oh, that's brilliant. Yeah, there was.
Can we pause it for 1 second? Can we pause it for 1 second? I want to get another beer. We're just gonna have a break.
It's just basically I'm coming really to the end, because there was like literally just two ladies, Rihanna and Maria. They really want to thank you for the stories you're always telling about those days, and Maria also want to thank you for that you like her artwork she did about Brian.
Yeah, I mean, anybody that does anything to do with the original band, or the band as it is, now, I'm kind of like, I say thank you to all those people for that, and it's great that somebody take that trouble. It's great. Yeah.
It was a real pleasure to meet you today.
And you.
And I really want to thank you that you shared a few stories.
You're more than welcome.
And it's really brilliant to have met you. I'm really honoured by that.
Well, great. Good to see you. And Lars, is it Lars with an S or a Z?
It's usually with an S, but you can do it with a Z if you like.
Yeah, because I see sometimes it comes with an S, sometimes with a Z.
Yeah.
And I think it's probably because on the QWERTY keyboard they're underneath each other.
Yeah.
So it's one you don't. Yeah.
It started as a joke with a Z. A friend started it as a joke, and it stayed for many years.
Right.
And somehow I tried to get away of it, but I can live with it.
All right. Okay.
And it was a real pleasure. And maybe we'll meet again at some point.
Lars, well, you've got my phone number, you've got all that stuff.
Yeah.
And I take it you've got a flight tonight, have you?
No, I'm going on